What happens when you go from saving 20% of your income to saving 80%? The results may not be intuitive and may be surprising. Let's look at this graph of your income, wealth, and spend over time when you're spending about 90% of your income. So you're saving just 10%. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, your income and your spends are going neck and neck because you're almost spending all of your income. And your wealth, even after 10 years, is just about as much as your income. It only begins to take off maybe around the 20-year mark, but it's still nearly not enough to retire. So let's see what happens when you go from saving 20% to 80% of your income. So here's a small Excel sheet that I've created. Let's say your current annual income is $100. I've just taken this to simplify things. It's easy to visualize as a percentage. Your current annual spend, let's say, is about 80% of that 100. So, you're saving 20%. Your investment return rate is 10%, which is very reasonable. So you're earning 10% of whatever investments you're making from the amount that you save. Your yearly income increases by about 10% every year, which makes sense. So your salary or other increments are about 10% every year on average. I've taken the safe withdrawal rate to be about 4%, which is 0.04. This means you can safely withdraw about 4% of your wealth after retirement without running out of money. This is actually your spend to wealth ratio. So basically, how much of your wealth you can spend after retirement. This Excel sheet has all the calculations for the math, and I won't go into the details here, but I'll put the link down in the description if you want to check it out. Now let's look at the graphs when you're spending 80% of your income. This is how your income, spend, and wealth looks like over time. So as you can see, till about 5 to 6 years, you haven't saved much. It takes off a bit after that, and maybe at about 20 years, you've saved a significant amount, but your spend is still close to your income because you're just saving 20%. So your wealth, even though after 20 years it's a good level, is still not enough for you to retire. This can be shown by the other graph of spend wealth ratio over time. So if you're saving 20% of your income, as you can see, your spend wealth ratio, even after 20 years, reaches about 0.21, which is 21%, which is still far away from the 4% rate that we want for you to be able to completely retire. Now let's ramp up the savings rate. So let's say you're spending only 60% of your income, so you're saving 40%. This is how your income, spend, and wealth graph looks like now. As you can see now, your wealth takes off much earlier. There is a significant gap between your income and your spend as you go along. And by the 15-year mark, and definitely by the 20-year mark, your wealth far exceeds what you're spending. If you look at the spend wealth ratio graph, it's still not enough because at 20 years, you've reached about 8%, which is still far above the 4% that you need. So while you're getting there, it's still not enough. Now let's ramp up the savings rate to 60%, which means you're spending only 40% of your income. So this time, as you can see, your wealth takes off much faster. In fact, even from year number 2. And at year number 15 and 20, it far exceeds your spends. This is the kind of graph that you want to be looking at. And if we look at the spend wealth ratio graph, you actually now see that 4% appear at year number 15. So what this means is if you're saving 60% of your income and spending only 40%, you can actually retire in year number 15, which is not bad at all. Now let's finally go to the place where you're saving 80% of your income, so your spend is only 20%. Now as you can see, the graph really takes off. And this is obviously the graph that you want to be looking at from your perspective. And if you look at the spend wealth graph, you can see that it's drastically faster. So instead of 15 years, you're reaching the 0.04 or the 4% mark in 6 years, which is remarkable. So all things being equal, instead of saving 60% of your income, if you save 80%, you can actually save 10 years of your life, which is surprising. And if you want to know the top 10 things that you need to do to achieve financial freedom, watch this video.